So,
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming. Oh, there. Hey. My sister's here. Hi, Maddie.
feel free to answer if he's
Yeah.
absolutely. And I guess we should start off by just saying this is such an early sneak peek of this film that it's not even, it's really, I guess, would be considered still somewhat of a rough cut.
Yeah,
There's a time code on the bottom.
You may have noticed the time code on the bottom, and you know, this is what we call a work print, so the sound is not final, and the color of the picture is not final. So if some of the colors seem dark or some of the lights sort of seemed a little too intense, all of that is being worked on. It's this Friday we're finishing all of that stuff. So you do have to go see this in the movie theater for real to see the real version of it. But I'm so glad you guys are actually the first audience to see this from beginning to end with all the animation, and I'm so glad that we could do it here. Did you guys like it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for allowing us that.
That was a leading question, but...
You know, in an interview that I read, after you received your Oscar nomination for your short Head Over Heels, which is, you can watch online and it's really a wonderful film. It's only short, 10 minutes. You said that you, at that point, dreamed of working on a feature film, but you weren't sure if it was in the cards, to use your words. Well, apparently it was in the cards, so how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, that was only, I finished that short 4 years ago. No, well, 5 years ago. And 5 years later, I have a movie that's 8 times as long. You know, it's amazing, and I'm so grateful. I feel very blessed to have had this opportunity.
You know, before the film, His Eminence talked about the power of story. Mm-hmm. And the story of the Nativity is obviously one of the best known, beloved stories. It's the greatest story ever told. And it has been told many times in many different formats, including any number of films and, of course, a lot of TV Christmas specials, including an underrated classic. A favorite of mine was Rankin and Bass's Nestor the Long-Eared Donkey from 1977, so I have a soft spot for donkeys. But were there any of these older tellings that inspired your telling?
Not as such. I mean, I guess in some ways we were more inspired by the lack of something like this. The fact that there are those TV specials, but they're not feature length. They're little short kind of TV slots. So the really exciting thing for us was that we had the opportunity to make a movie that has not been made yet. This feature length, fully animated, for the whole family treatment of the Nativity story. I mean, the thing that you can pull from these things that have come before is the understanding that a lot of times it's easier to tell the story of Christmas if you focus on a character other than Mary or Joseph, because then it becomes, well, what does Christmas mean to me as a witness to Christmas? I think it's also hard for children of all ages to sort of connect to the story of two parents, stressed out about the birth of a first child. So I think if you can kind of put the story on a character like Bo the donkey or like the little drummer boy or a character like that, then it kind of makes it more accessible to everybody in the family.
Sure, and obviously certain dramatic licenses were taken, but it stays very true beat to beat to the scripture. You talked about how many films today handle the theme of Christmas, and the reality is many Hollywood films, particularly in recent memory, when they do release a Christmas film, it's really more about a secular understanding of Christmas. The plot usually involves a protagonist who's trying to save Christmas, and that Christmas is usually more of a commercial idea of Christmas. Were you surprised that a major studio like Sony wanted to take on a Christmas movie, that really promoted the true meaning of the holiday?
It's kind of surprising, but on the other hand, it's showbiz, it's a business, and I think ever since the Passion of the Christ, the studios have been very aware that there's an audience out there that's hungry for high quality content that's with authenticity, so they're making this movie because they see that there's demand for it, I guess, yeah, I mean, our goal though with this is is to tell the true story of Christmas, but to also tell it in a way that doesn't feel preachy, so that we don't alienate people who are maybe more on the outskirts of what we call the faith-based audience. I mean, we're hoping actually this movie will draw people in who wouldn't otherwise think of themselves as the type of person to go see a faith-based movie. Yeah, because ultimately we're not making a faith-based movie, we're making a story and character-based movie. Yeah, it's got everything that any other animated film would have.
Sure. Now, your earlier film, Head Over Heels, again, just in short, can you tell the audience just a little bit about what the plot is?
Head Over Heels is a 10-minute short, and it's about a married couple, a husband and wife, and the husband lives on the floor and the wife lives on the ceiling. And it's sort of this metaphor for how, a relationship, you can kind of live with a person for many years and slowly realize that you're not even living on the same plane as them. And it's about, essentially it's about a marriage that has kind of gone a little bit stale, and the actions that this married couple take in order to bring it back to life. Now, that film is told in a very visual, cinematic way. There's the two characters, and beyond a few grunts, there's really no dialogue. Right. So you go from that, working with clay models, to really working with an all-star cast, a voice talent here. So how is it going from clay models to working with Oprah? Right. It's different, but at the same time, like when you're working with these just working with these little clay models in a stop-motion movie, really you're putting a performance on screen. And so this was my first time working with a cast this large, and not to mention a cast of this caliber. But I was really able to draw on a lot of my experience as an animator, because ultimately that is acting. You're just not acting with your body, you're acting with a different character's body. And the great thing was that everyone in the cast was so game. It's kind of weird to do voice acting in an animated movie, because you're just in a room with a microphone, and you have to pretend that you're about to mow down the King Herod's bounty hunter, And I just remember with Oprah, we said, "Okay, Oprah, now what we need here is the camels are charging, and we need you to do some kind of like a battle cry." And she was like, "A battle cry? Okay." And so she closed her eyes and was silent for about 30 seconds, and we were all looking at each other like, is she going to do it, or what's she waiting for? And then suddenly she came out with this she's never made that sound ever in front of a microphone, I'm sure. Just definitely never on her show, but it was like she really brought that out. Anyway, it's like, if someone is willing to go there, then the director's role is really just to open the door and let them run through it,
Sure. Another wonderful thing about Head Over Heels is there's a real handmade quality about it. Mm-hmm. It's very small, very lovingly crafted. And now you go from that to a big budget, computer-generated feature film like this. And I want to read John Lasseter of Pixar, he's really sort of the gold standard of animation today, said in an interview that art challenges technology and technology inspires art. It's not the software that makes the movie, it's what you do with the software. Mm-hmm. So in a movie like this, how did you stay focused and make sure that the technology really served and didn't overshadow the story and the character and the emotion?
I mean, the animation process is built to help with that, because you start with the script, and from the script you get these vocal performances, and you do the storyboards, and at that point, the sky is the limit. All you're trying to do is get the story on the screen, and once you've got that, then it's just a matter of executing it. And I think there's a temptation to be like, okay, well, can we have a lot of smoke here? Maybe we can have a big fire here, but if the story doesn't call for it, then you're just showing off what you can do. And if you can keep the movie tied down to what you need for the story, then you can avoid all that. And yeah, that's what the storyboard process helps us do.
Sure. Now, we are at the Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen Center, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask one or two questions about the religious aspects of the film. Mm-hmm. I really love the ending. Obviously, everyone knew how it was going to end, but what I really, I'm talking about the characters of the two dogs. Mm-hmm. And what I love so much about it is the fact that in a very, with economy and artistry, you were actually really able to communicate a very deep theological truth in a very accessible way. The two bad dogs were invited in. Everyone is welcome, welcomed by God and invited by God to a deeper relationship. But they were also invited to conversion. They were invited to be, if not good dogs, at least try to be better dogs. And so much today is, it's the idea of, Jesus loves you, but it doesn't ask you anything. And this film really says that you're called to a conversion and to really reassess your life. So was that intentional, that you were trying to touch on both the aspect of mercy and forgiveness and acceptance, but also moral responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, I never put it to myself in those terms, but yeah, it totally, I mean, probably just because, we went there, we had the dogs. Are we good dogs now? Yes, Rufus. And it just felt false, Yes, you're good dogs now just because you got to look at a baby in a manger? No, you're not good dogs yet, but now you have a calling to try. And I guess that's the other thing is that, whoever is here without sin casts the first stone, right? I guess none of us here are good dogs, right? We all keep screwing up, but we just have to keep getting back up and trying to be better. So I guess those dogs really are stand-ins for all of us,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the end scene would have been complete without those two dogs there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a favorite writer of mine is G.K. Chesterton, and he's got this lovely poem about Christmas. And I don't remember it all, and I forgot to write it down. But in a nutshell, he said that at the first Christmas, heaven and earth turned upside down. And heaven, in the form of the baby in the manger, got to look up to earth. Heaven got to look up to earth. And thinking about that, I also thought about your short, because in that short, as you said, these two people are living upside down lives. And I started thinking, well, there's a real recurring theme there, the idea that love can take an upside down world and turn it right side up. Is that a theme of interest to you, about the idea that love can transform lives?
And I guess, yeah, I wasn't familiar with that poem, but I think it makes sense to me, it rings true, because I guess the image of something turning upside down is very visual, and that's why it works so well, whether in a poem or in, in a short film or whatever. We're trying to show a visual, find a visual way to show the transformative power of love, and that's a pretty visual thing to do. And in this movie in particular, I thought one thing that I thought we could do really nicely with the birth of baby Jesus is to show that God, I guess, we tend to think of God deciding to be born in a manger just as him choosing like the lowliest place. But he wasn't born in a trash dump. He could have been born there are lowlier places than a stable. What he chose was to be surrounded by his creation, not just human beings, but also, the God that created donkeys is also the God that created humans. And the God that created donkeys didn't come to earth as a donkey, he came to earth as a human. And I guess, to me, that really resonates with what Pope Francis has been talking about with Laudato Si, and also I understand today's the feast.
Today is the feast of St.
Francis of Assisi, yeah. And, I think it upgrades what we know about like our stewardship of the planet, or our relationship towards God's creation. We tend to think of it in terms of Adam and Eve, but we should also think of it in terms of like when the creator of donkeys chose to touch a donkey, he chose to do it through the hand of a human baby, and that puts something on us, that like God touches all of his creation with human hands.
Oh, it's a beautiful thought. It's a beautiful thought. Now, I do want to be sensitive because I know there's kids here, so I don't want to, but I know there are students here. So last question is, do you have any advice for any aspiring animators out there?
Yeah, I think one thing I would say, and especially if there are parents of aspiring animators here, is not to be afraid of the film industry, and to please, foster that interest in your kids. And if you're a student who is interested in film, don't give up. Keep working at it, because the only way we're going to change the culture of Hollywood is by bringing our best people into it. And I think maybe there tends to be a cultural fear among Christians of going in there because it seems like a scary place for Christians. But honestly, there are so many people in the film industry, and none of them care. So just come. But the advice I give to, if you want to go into animation, the best thing you could spend your time on is drawing, because everyone uses drawing, even if, like, my job does not actually require me to draw. My job requires me to communicate ideas. But the best way to communicate an idea in animation is to draw it. So no matter who you are in animation, drawing is a necessary skill, so keep drawing.